Hey y'all, welcome back. We're so glad that you joined us. Today is part 2 of our podcast. And if you missed part 1, you might want to go back and check that out. But we're going to be talking about the Quiet Right, part 2, and we're just going to hop right into it here. So grab something cozy, put on your earbuds, get busy, sit back, relax, whatever you do, however you listen to this or watch along. We're just glad that you're here. So I'm Faith.
I'm TD.
And we're just glad that you're here.
Yeah, so we're watching along on a video from Christopher Rufo about the title of his video is The Rise of the Conservative Counterculture. And so we're watching this video. We've discussed a little bit. We're currently up to his concept of the educational component of culture. And so that's where we're going to pick up. So let us begin, shall we?
You know, we're going to shape the whole person. The purpose of education is not professional, but it's actually to cultivate the soul, cultivate the human being, cultivate a higher understanding of eternal principles that we are transmitting from one generation to the next. And I think all three of these things we're seeing are tremendous bright spots that have huge potential for investment in the future. The second area is arts and culture. And I think this is really the second and important area we're seeing. We're seeing, of course, right-wing pseudonymous accounts, some of whom you're probably familiar with, launching new magazines, new literary prizes, new publishing houses, new translation ventures for lost foreign works. And a lot of people who are probably naturally fit for academia, and in some cases are actually tenured academics who are pseudonymous. They don't want to make their politics known because of the peril of that, both reputationally and professionally. They're saying, you know, we're going to put our energy pseudonymously into these literary and intellectual enterprises. It's almost a kind of parallel track to the organized academy that I think is...
He's on to something here, talking about this parallel track. We talk about it all the time on our channel, is the solutions for what we're currently being presented with in a postmodern, post-truth, cancel culture world where everything is being controlled by a technocratic oligarchy that's all about utilitarianism and just total control, where he's talking about parallel. We always talk about parallel economy, parallel community, parallel society. And that's exactly what he's referencing here when it comes to education and fine arts, and he uses the word pseudonymously a lot too. I noticed that.
Yes, and I think that that is what you're seeing in these alternative forms of education. Even like what you're consuming today is a podcast, right? And it is these parallel dynamics that a lot of different people across the spectrum of different backgrounds and things, they're now having podcasts, and people are finding other like-minded conservative type people that they align their values with, or spiritual beliefs with, and they're listening to that because we build each other up in those things. And I think, speaking back to what he was saying too about educating the whole person, I think that can go either way. And I believe that what he was saying is absolutely true, 100%. Either way, education does shape and form the whole person. So taking that into consideration when you place your child into the care of someone else to educate them.
When you farm them out, you mean?
Well, if you're right, I'm just saying to take that and make that decision so deeply that it's not just you can chop it up and it's just the academics that you're like allowing someone to instill into your child. No, they know that they're shaping the whole person.
Real quick, I want to tell you all about the best way to support this channel, if you're loving the content that you're watching right now and you want to support us, I would love for you to go check out TheTexasBoys.com, where we sell our locally sourced, farm fresh, non-pasteurized, non-vaccinated honey in 1 gallon, 5 pound, 44 ounce, 22 ounce, 1 pound, and 14 ounce honeys. We got pumpkin spice honey, we got pecan honey, both creamed honeys. This is just a normal 1 pound honey. Both of these are creamed, and then these are just in their awesome raw state honey. Moving on, we have our native brew coffee line with several more coffees than this, but we have Columbia, Southern Pecan, Hazelnut, You're Making Me Crazy, and Vanilla here on the table. Absolutely incredible coffees. Go check them out. So this right here is our native mushroom brew. I absolutely love this. If you're not a coffee fan, or maybe even if you are, I'd love for you to go try this stuff out. 7 different types of mushrooms, and also we have a native mud version of this too, and that has cocoa powder in it. And what I really love to do with this stuff is put a scoop of it in my coffee. And y'all, that is absolutely incredible. So go check out the Texas Boys today. I'll let y'all get back to your video.
So, I mean, it's just even more confirmation that I want to be that person to, you know, be the one to disciple or shape the whole child, you know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, and I wanted to, for any of you new to our channel, new to our podcast, this is the Beauty and the Beast podcast. So obviously I'm the Beast, she's the Beauty. I like to be very direct and blunt, and I attempt to not be hyperbolic, but at the same time, I just like to say it kind of how it is without any type of further explanations, because I just think, you know, it's lacking clarity, and forthrightness is lacking in our culture and in society. And speaking to that, and speaking of this platform and podcasts, and, you know, that just speaks to technology, and technology definitely cuts both ways, and technology in a very real way is literally almost the chains of our own enslavement. But at the same time, if you're not taking advantage of the opportunities that technology does provide, and the freedom, whether or not how much of it is illusionary and how much of it is real, you're really missing out, and you're missing the point. And that's just like with any great technology. I always think of, I mean, one of, if not the greatest technology and invention of all time that transformed the world, and transformed, for that matter, Christianity, transformed theology, was the invention of the book, which was actually invented by Christians because they were readers. So the book was an invention invented by Christians, and then the Gutenberg movable type printing press. And you know, you could get all geeked out about it and be Luddite or whatever and say, oh, this is the devil, Bobby Boucher. Or you could utilize it, right, and print Bibles and send Bibles all over the world. So, you know, in a very similar fashion, you know, that's our goal, that's our attempt, that's our hope. And that's why we want to utilize these technologies, and we can be here in the backwoods of Northeast Texas, and we're sharing with our friends in the UK, Australia, and our Kiwis, everybody that's down under, and all that good stuff. So that's what we're doing. Oh no, went to sleep on me, y'all.
In some cases, maybe too edgy for my own tastes, but I appreciate that people are trying to push the envelope for a kind of new right arts and culture. They're trying to say, we want to actually be authentically transgressive of the dominant discourse, not simply, check the boxes of saying, free market economics, whatever, the safe kind of the safe kind of civic libertarian right that has in some ways lost ground in academia, but is still a relatively safe position. People who are say I'm a classical liberal, but actually aren't pushing those deeper challenges from the classical liberal tradition. And then the third area where I think we're seeing tremendous progress is in media. If you look at the media ecosystem as a whole, conservatives have more audience share, have more voice share today than we did in 2000, than we did in 2010. On net, we have a much greater voice and a much larger plurality of voices than we did before. And obviously, we need to fight to push back against this censorship, against deplatforming, to ensure that we can still have...
It's because the postmodern, post-truth left is a totally complicit echo chamber, and they're mutually exclusive and inclusive. And that's why the left it's Ouroboros, and it's been by design to eat their own tail. It is self-destructive by design, because when you allow them to engulf the culture, right, and then they're steering the ship, for lack of a better term, and then they literally consume themselves, well, you've destroyed the population. Mm-hmm.
A voice moving forward, that the algorithm and the hard coding don't kind of turn the conservative media into an algorithmic ghetto on the internet. But we have to be optimistic. And I think what we've seen and what I've seen and interesting me personally is a lot of these independent voices, especially faith-based voices, saying, we're going to have a kind of traditional faith-based message that is packaged in a new way, that reaches young people, that reaches new parents, that reaches people approaching middle age. That's really exciting. That's really good. It's a kind of community that is an opt-out from mainstream media. You don't have to read the disinformation reporting at NBC News. You can actually turn to something that's much more substantive, long-form podcasting from a Christian or Catholic perspective, for example. The second thing we're seeing is more industrial scale outfits. This is places like the Daily Wire that are actually engaging in a very ambitious cultural and business enterprise to say, you know what, we're going to have more alternatives in the kind of at-scale media distribution than just Fox News. We're going to have the Daily Wire. We're going to have the Blaze. We're going to have other outfits that are saying we're going to come together as a business venture, make ourselves profitable by building an audience that is dedicated to what we're doing, and then we're going to...
And the challenge to this Right Inc. of this Daily Wire, the Blaze, dare I say, even something like James O'Keefe's Project Veritas, one of the things that's come out with this Project Veritas fallout is some different things about James O'Keefe and his beholdenism and protectionism to Fox News, because they were letting him on there, and the way that he mistreated people because they wanted to criticize Fox News, which is very interesting. But that's the problem you have with these Right Inc., these big brand labeled super ultra deep pockets like the Daily Wire, like Steven Crowder, like Glenn Beck at the Blaze. They're still cowtailing to Right Inc., and they're still completely tied into the paradigm, and there is very little that is parallel at all. There's some great voices. I don't want to malign everybody, and right. We don't have to agree with everybody. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I am very careful to do is when someone speaks the truth, I can agree with them and say, yes, wow, what they're saying is true. That doesn't mean that I validate everything they are, everything they believe. Mm-hmm. That's the problem with our star culture and idol worship and all these different things, that the bread and circuses and that, professional sports and the basic iconoclast culture and this, Hollywood star worship has created is we want to, when we identify and agree, we want to idolize this person, and we want to basically say, and it happens a lot on our channel, I agree 100% with everything that you said. And I find that very, I've never met one person that I've had any substantial type of long form conversation with that they agree very little with me, and that's fine. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to win any popularity contests or anything like that. I try to share truth. I try to influence. I just try to get people to think. In a there's lots of people in this they want to play the devil's advocate and all this stuff, and they just want to be controversial for the sake of controversial. That's not my goal.
Push that line, push that message, push that narrative in a way that can only be done through an organized activity to provide a counterbalance to that corporate kind of New York, DC media, the legacy media, the ABCs, NBCs, CBS, CNN, etc. We're actually going to challenge them, not just ideologically, but as a matter of business, as a matter of commerce, which of course plays right into the longstanding conservative case for free markets. Well, we're going to actually compete with the adversaries in the realm of free markets, not just the realm of abstract opinion. And third, what I think we're also seeing expressed in media, but also a deeper trend, is that we're seeing, kind of mom bloggers or kind of family bloggers revalorizing the idea of family. You're seeing very attractive Instagram pages and Tumblr pages and social media feeds saying, you know what, family is very important. We're going to provide a new aesthetic for family life, a new vision for family life that isn't the kind of maybe older line, moral majority, focus on the family, kind of 1980s style, evangelical vision, but actually something that is more broadly popular and broadly appealing to people who say,
I don't know about the broader appealing part, because when you try to be ubiquitous or broad, I believe you have to, in a very real way, almost dilute and kind of sell out who you are for the sake of a broader appeal.
Yes, I would agree. I think that in order to make a difference in our world, you do have to be different. And when you try to be too broad and too mainstream, your impact is very marginalized because people don't even see you on an Instagram page as being any different than the mainstream. So to be different, you do have to make a difference, you do have to be different in every way.
Yeah, I believe you have to be radically different, and the purpose and the point of sharing is that the proof is in the pudding. And so if we're integral human beings and we're consistent and our words and our actions meet, and we say we are this way, and then we think that way and we live that way, and it affects the decisions we make long term, especially if you're sharing your life like we do on social media, the proof will play out.
Right.
You know?
I do think that the really cool thing is that it was so it was such a small niche, like going back to the early years, like who you could listen to for conservative radio or like, a talk show. It was like such a small group of people, whether it was for political things or current events or whatever. And now we do just have so many voices, and there's just such a large, wide span.
And speaking to that, the problem we have with all this, and he actually vaguely referenced it, of this new right that's trying to be edgy. You end up with these Crowders and these Owen Benjamins and these other individuals, and it's just profanity laced and raunchy kind of stuff that you cannot even but it's right it's the right wing, and
Right.
it's very popular, and that's how we're going to get the culture. And because you know what, we're giving them our Christian message, just like Steven Crowder, who just talks all up, down, and sideways about how he's a Christian. And I appreciate his apologetics. Well, I appreciate the way that he has dialogue with people. I can't say I appreciate his apologetics, but I appreciate his dialogue and the reasoning, the calm, the reasoned way in which he does it. And there's a lot of good that I find in that, but you can't. But the rest of his stuff is such trash. You can't share it with anybody because I'm like, man, this guy is just so perverse. It's just, and that's what's very strange about the left-right paradigm, and that's why we're completely outside of that paradigm. We are completely outside of that paradigm, and the reality of the paradigm is the uniparty is marching to the same end, just a different flavor. Yeah, one might be marching faster, one might be marching slower, but ultimately they're exclusively wanting to go to the same
Yeah.
destination.
Well, I think what's neat about it is that it's not just like Rush Limbaugh, like back in the 80s or whatever, was
I
like
wish I had a piece of paper.
your only
I would snap the piece of paper in the microphone and say, "My formerly nicotine-stained fingers."
so yeah, it's not just like, it isn't just to focus on the family. It's not just Rush Limbaugh. It's not, there are so many voices. And I think it can be like baby steps of getting people that are, oh, I'm conservative in this, or oh, I'm just waking up, my eyes are just opening to some of these things that are going on, like culturally or socially, like, and then maybe, this is what I'm thinking, is that it's baby steps. Like they start out listening to, someone who's more mainstream conservative, but then as they become more conservative in their ideals, some people, that they're going to find the people that they really align with. And like us, I mean,
Sure, that's all of us, yeah.
We probably just have, a few thousand, like really, really loyal people that really do align with us. And they're just like, on almost every video and watching and commenting, and we love y'all because
You know who you are, Carlos.
we feel like we really become friends and we really do connect with y'all over the years. So it doesn't have to be this big giant audience. It can just be these few handful of people that you connect with.
Well, and the reality is even though we say this silent majority, right, which there is an enormous amount of truth in a very general, large, pragmatic sense, that we are far more conservative as a country than the blue-haired, transhumanist, weirdo, pierced, tattooed, whatever. And I, even by saying that with the new pop culture writing, like that's super taboo and judgy and all that stuff. Even though in a broader sense, this is a quote unquote Christian country, which it isn't, but in the broader sense, we are such a minuscule minority. And from a Christian perspective, biblically, that is the reality. Straight is the gate, narrow is the way. Few there be that find it. And not all saying to me, Lord, Lord, right? Mm-hmm. Lord, Lord. Have I not done this, that, and the other in thy name, and cast out devils and all stuff? Depart from me, I never knew you. So while there is a professing Christendom of professors, there is absolutely a much smaller reality of the family of God that are genuine, maybe even unbeknownst to themselves. The heart is deceitful above all things, desperately wicked. Who can know it? Many people are self-deceived into deceive themselves, and the father of lies has deceived them into their position in Christ. So that's why this whole conquer the culture thing is a misnomer. Somebody commented on one of our last videos about this Christian nationalism. And that is an entire, that's a setup, and that's this branding thing, and it's not biblical, and it's not practical, and it's not, it would never work, and it didn't work in the past.
Right.
So, you know.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking in Revelation, it says, out of every tribe, nation, kindred, tongue. Like, I mean, I don't think that, I mean, I'm very thankful that we live in the United States, but my nationalism is very limited under the umbrella of me being a Christian.
Yeah, of course.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think God is limited to the United States.
Right, of course, yeah. You know, and this world isn't our home, and we're passing through, and we're just trying to be some light and salt on the way. And light hurts the eyes, and salt irritates. So we are blinding and irritating, and that doesn't generate the views. It doesn't garner the subscriptions and all that stuff, but that's okay.
That's not why we're here.
That's not why we're doing this. And all you got to do is look at, all of it, and you'll see that's why we're
Yeah,
doing it.
that's not why we're doing it.
I don't want to have to buy into everything ideologically, hook, line, and sinker on the right. But I want to feel like, in contrast to queer theory, in contrast to gender ideology, the nuclear family is good. Moms, dads, kids coming together are the basis of society, should be celebrated, should be revalorized, should be really lifted up against the left-wing ideological attack that we've seen really push the family into a defensive position. And then another thing I'm seeing, kind of bright spot that is fun for me to browse, although I'm certainly not equipped or interested in doing personally, is a kind of conservative analog to the 1970s Back to the Land movement. You know, you had these hippies opting out of life in New York City and going up to Vermont and, growing fruit and playing the guitar. You've seen all of those images. You've seen those movies. Something that I grew up with, living kind of on the West Coast, this was kind of idealized. And in many cases was good. I think that they were really authentically embracing these values of opting out of hyper-consumerism, opting out of the rat race, moving up to Vermont. And I think this is why someone who is, I'm politically opposed to, like Bernie Sanders, still I find somewhat an affable person. I find somewhat attractive as a personality because he really represents that kind of old line commitment, opting out and moving to Vermont from New York. To try to pursue an authentic politics. Well, sorry, Bernie, but left-wing politics now is anything but authentic. The left-wing Back to the Land movement has been supplanted by the left-wing DEI bureaucracy movement. And there's no place in left-wing politics right now for that kind of original authenticity. But not so for this right-wing or conservative analog. I've seen a lot of people that I know saying, we're moving to Idaho, we're moving to Montana, we bought a ranch, we're growing a farm. They present this kind of authentic conservative politics, something like a Wendell Berry style, rootedness.
The conservative analog. So what do you think about the conservative analog? I find his use of words very interesting. But I mean, we're the conservative analog.
I think that it's really inspiring. I mean, I think there's so many different channels that we've watched over the years that have helped to spur us on and challenge us. And I love the lifestyle that we live. I feel like it matches and not just matches, but it just accentuates everything that we believe spiritually, what we believe. It all complements. That's what I'm trying to say. We can study our Bibles in the morning, and we can pull things that we're learning from our Bible and apply them to what's going on outside with the animals. And I'm laughing a little bit because I got some pictures today of
ham and beans.
Some ham and beans, and yeah. Anyway, it's a little bit of an inside joke, but
our pig's name is Hamilton and Beans.
And Beans is his wife, and
so you all can connect the dots.
Yes.
In the in the homestead analog kind of way.
Yes, and our our 7-year-old brought me in some pictures that it is spring in the backyard, and spring was happening with ham and beans today. So I had some documentation of that, and my 7-year-old was very excited that that was happening because that means baby piglets. And it all just, I don't have to explain that.
Yeah.
Like, it all just naturally, that's not spiritual, but all these things from nature, everything just works together, and it's just awesome. I mean, you can do it any way. You don't have to live on a farm, but
Right. But I mean, all I get daily is validation of why what we did 9 years ago and what we decided to do and the continuous progression and press forward, because the reality is it's not easy. It's not inexpensive. It's not simple. And there will always, which nothing in life that's worth doing is, okay? So there's always resistance. There's always a fight. If there wasn't, one, of course, everybody would be doing it. Two, there would be no value in it. Three, there would be no fulfillment in it, right? Like, oh yeah, I fell off a log and look at all this, you know? And I mean, that's all part of the process. And that process is all part of the maturation, the Christian growth process, all of the allegories and biblical illustrations that are just overtly demonstrated in the entire lifestyle and the agrarian. You can make a very strong case that we should not be living a synthetic lifestyle. You can make a very strong case. And this has nothing to do with all the positive health benefits to it,
Right.
all the positive, like actually getting to eat real food that you grow. I'm just superficially looking at it from a very high elevation, not down in the, ground surface level and all that stuff. So, yeah, I think it's kind of funny too that, well, I'm not interested in that stuff, but this is really cool and this is really good for the Christian analog and all that stuff. It's kind of funny.
Well, I think that it's neat that even if you don't have a farm, but even if you just grew some fruit trees, or you just had some plants that were, some garden plants that were in pots or a little raised bed, like, you don't have to be, all doing every single thing.
But I will warn you. Like, I ate a fresh fig, and I was like, I want a fig tree. And now I have 140 of them. So I'm just saying. So.
Yeah, but even if you just have a little backyard and it's backed up to some woods, and you're just letting your kids run out in the woods, and you're building some forts and they're running and playing, like, there's just so much beauty in just nature and how it complements the Christian life, a conservative life, a life that's set apart and different from the mainstream.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, even Christ, when he would take a break, he retreated to the Garden of Gethsemane. It's very interesting. It's not coincidental, and there's an enormous amount of power in that too. And I'm not trying to overemphasize it. I'm not trying to make it something bigger than what it is, because it's not. But there's an enormous amount of gratification, satisfaction, synergy, and complementarianism in everything that we do by choosing to live this lifestyle. And it is rather counterculture, because just like he was saying, how the Back to the Land hippie movement was co-opted by all the agencies and the whatevers, and now we have this right wing kind of thing, and it really speaks to the whole, how the counterculture movement was established and which characters and which people and how it was co-opted from the beginning. But now we have what we have now, which is not to say that the current movements and what's happening now aren't attempting to be co-opted, because there's plenty of still flaming transhuman whatever, and they're POC Z or Z whatever, and they're organic or whatever. You know what I mean? So I digress.
Populating a small city, a small town. We're opening up a kind of cultural space for conservatives or attached to a religious institution or a new school. And I think these things are really good. It's a kind of rooted, maybe even rural or small town conservatism. It's using the kind of iconic images of Americana and then conveying them in a very attractive postmodern media narrative. I love browsing these things. I love watching these things. I'm not going to be ranching anytime soon, but I think that it's something that is overall a positive and exciting development. And then finally, the other big picture trend that I'm tracking and looking at is the reshuffling or the big sort of Americans who are now moving and seeking more habitable political environs. So I think we've saw this over the last 10 years, and I think it's very much accelerated during the pandemic. Conservatives, and this is dozens of people that I know personally, and then I think the data also bears this out. Conservatives are fleeing from kind of captured states like California and New York and Illinois, and then going to places like Texas and Florida and Idaho and Tennessee, where they feel like the state is not going to be punishing them. But in fact, they'll have a friendlier terrain for building a conservative community, transmitting conservative values to their kids, participating in conservative institutions, schools, local governments, civic institutions, and then actually building. And I felt this personally. When I lived in Seattle, I tried to kind of push against the dominant orthodoxy, but it's such an uphill battle. You get exhausted after a time, and you feel like you're at headwinds always. And it's very difficult to build and invest in alternative institutions that are going to feel so much pressure right off the bat, just because of the demographic challenge, demographic pressure, the dominant institutional arrangement that puts really kind of hyper pressure on anything that would be seen as a threat. But, I've moved out to a small town. Many of my friends have moved out of Washington State into places like in Idaho, where they say, this is great. I can actually invest. I can actually participate. I can actually build. I can actually get involved on a board of directors for a new school project, for a classical K through 12 academy, or participate in a kind of conservative alternative at the university level, or build up a very vibrant faith institution. And then, so we're starting to see this big fleeing from left-wing policy towards the potential for a more organic right-wing community building or conservative community.
And this is what we talked about when we moved 9 years ago about balkanization and how our country was going to fracture along cultural lines. And oh boy, how we have seen that accelerated, just like he said, with the Rona stuff, where you see, it's fascinating how complacent people are with tyranny and with rancid liberalism and with the coldness that it creates. And whether it's the frog in the pot thing, like, well, but it's comfortable here.
Some people.
Yes. Some people are really cozy with that, and then you're comfortable in that, and then when they lock everything down and lock you in your house, you're like, well, that's not very nice, but hey, bud, you're stuck there, But we walked. It's what Jack Spirko talks about, walking to freedom. Like, if you can move, why wouldn't you? Right? Take advantage of every opportunity you have to put yourself in a better position to win, whether it's a better position to raise and rear your children. One of the major factors with where we were originally located was the cost of living and the cost of property. And, we talked about it early on, like, how in the world can our children stay here? How will they ever be able to afford a house, or how will they ever be able to afford anything between the taxation?
Well, it could only be possible with two incomes. For most people, anyway, you would need a two-income family, and that was one of our strong conservative, right, if you want to kind of say, convictions, was that we strongly believed in raising our boys to be able to become men that would be able to provide a single family income. And in order to have that line up and make that actually a possible win for them, we needed to move somewhere where they could actually have that potential to, have a single family income and be able to support a family like that. And so we started looking at states that they could potentially do that.
Yeah, lower tax burden, more land, a lower price property, less taxation and different things. And, and property tax in Texas is kind of terrible. Not where we are, but it is very terrible in some spots. And they're supposedly going to address that politically.
Right.
But,
and the other thing too, like you were saying, or I guess he was saying too, was that, ideologically, I can't say it.
Ideologically?
Yes, that. We did not align with most people in the Northeast where we were, just in many different things, just lifestyle choices, things like that. We just did not politically, just in many, many facets of life, we just did not line up. So we were looking for somewhere that was politically conservative, socially conservative, and
yeah, and all that being said, there is no panacea. There's no perfect location,
right.
Unfortunately. But you find the best that you can get, and you go that direction, and that's what we did. And I still don't regret it for a second. And every day I become more and more thankful, right, of making the change. We had very, very, very good friends, and yeah, you know what, we're going to do that. 9 years ago, yeah, we're going to do that. We just have to do this and this and this, but then we're going to do that. And then a couple years ago, hey man, in a couple more years,
yeah,
in a couple more years, I just got to pay this thing off or that thing off, and then we're going to do that. And then a couple more years, and then a couple more years, and 9 years. Oh, so yeah, man, I wish we could do that.
Well, and there's real peer pressure when you live in a more liberal area, like where we came from. There is more pressure to conform, maybe not politically, but like in some of the ways, right? So if you just want to raise children to go run out in the woods and play and build arrows and like chisel things out of
Sounds
stone
dangerous.
and make like clay pots. I mean, they're like little tribal people in the backyard, and they're gonna like
kids.
play in the mud puddle all day rather than like sign them up for soccer and swim lessons.
Oh, kill me now.
No, but you are the oddball. Like you're the odd man out. Like, so then you homeschool.
Johnny needs to go to soccer to get out all his energy.
Yeah, so it's like, you're not going to take them to Disney World every year.
No,
like
actually never. I love my children.
So, when you aren't constricted to those areas of that very mainstream mindset, you are free to, like places like Idaho and just very free states that you can raise your family according to your own convictions. And
it's very interesting how these states correlate with agrarian type activities such as like ranching, farming, cowboy, different things like that. It's not coincidental. It's not accidental.
Community building, depending on who you ask. And I think this is very positive. It's very healthy. And ultimately, what does this all mean? We're seeing conservative intellectual activity, conservative artistic activity, conservative community building activity. It provides the possibility for conservatives to live out their values in a way that is protected, in a way that is cultivated, in a way that is rooted in relationships. And I think that this is really ultimately what we all want, what we all believe in. We believe that those very flesh and blood institutions, the family, the neighborhood, the church, the school, the local government, are the places where our lives are made. And many of us, we live in the media world where we fight on abstractions, we fight on narratives, we fight on ideological grounds. And this is important. You have to do that in order to create protection for the more organic community building that exists below. But we shouldn't mistake one for the other. Ultimately, if you only fight at that narrative level, it's an empty life. I think that the real thing that we're all seeking, the real thing that I'm seeking and struggling to build in my own life, is a sense of meaningful relationship and is a sense of cultivation for family, for those relationships, marriage, kids, education, that K through 12 environment where you have a limited time. You have a very short time to transmit values and habits and beliefs and character traits to your kids. And you want to do that in an environment where it's really coming together to support that reflects.
And this is where this homesteading / agrarian lifestyle amplifies this short period of time that you have with your posterity that God gifted you with, and working as a unit, right? As a family, working as a family, whether it's to grow your food, grow your animals, whether it's, then taking it the next step and developing family assets and different things like that. But this all synergistically by design, by created design, works together. Christopher's going to find this out. He's going to have his aha moment. Like, said I wasn't going to ranch, but now, yeah. I watch too many homestead YouTube channels. But anyway, so pray for Christopher that he sees the light. But no, this all does, what he's looking for is basically what we're experiencing. And it is, it's this practical application of all these different things. And what makes it practical application and it was just like he was saying, you can't fight on this one level and not fight on this other level, is, well, this higher thought level up here isn't praxis. It's not you take this up here and then you put it in practice down here. Now, one of the hard parts of putting in practice, well, you might get dirt under your fingernails. One of the hard parts of putting in practice, I might have to sell my bass boat. Or I won't be able to play tennis every week, or I won't be able to go to the foosball game, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? There's an enormous amount of sacrifice with that too. You can't have your cake, eat it too. You don't get it all. You can't have it all. And it does require sacrifice. It requires an enormous amount of time investment, an enormous amount of money investment. It requires an exclusive sacrifice of self, who you are, your personality, your interest, your desires, your pride, right? It's an extraction of all of that. And that's basically all sacrificed on the altar of the desire to fulfill your created duty as a father, as a mother, as a parent, to nurture the next generation, equip them, and then come alongside them, work with them, and then carry them right through to adulthood and still be there to be a mentor and answer the questions and all these things, but facilitating them, setting them up for the most optimal success that is possible.
Right, exactly. And I don't think you have to have a dairy cow to do this. I don't think you have to even have a backyard flock of chickens to do this. I think you can do this if you just, Paul Gauci just has like some epic gardens and, fruit trees and things like that. You could do honeybees, or, you could have rabbits, or, you don't have to do, it's not an all or nothing thing. What you do on your homestead, in your backyard, however you're set up, is not all or nothing. What has to be all or nothing, in our opinion anyway, based on experience, is the difference. If you want certain results anyway, if you want children and a family culture that is counterculture to the mainstream, then what needs to be all or nothing is your commitment to not be of the mainstream. And that is where I think the rubber meets the road. I think you can be on a farm, you can have a homestead, you can do ranching, you can do a lot of different things. But if you have one foot in the culture.
Yeah, if you have purple hair and play Xbox every night.
Right. You're still going to lose that next generation to the culture. The culture is so strong, and it's so alluring to children especially, that we just seen that and witnessed that over and over and over. And by that next generation, they're gone. They might physically still live on the farm, but mentally they've checked out. And that, I think that's where it really comes down to your commitment.
Right, because it's not just a lifestyle, it's a mindset.
Yeah.
It's a mindset, and it becomes who you are, and you become it. It's part of you, and the reason that it's part of you is you just can count all the blessings in it, and you can see all the advantages of it, and you can, through all the sacrifice and through all the difficulties and the challenges, you overcome all of that to some extent. And you are so thankful for the process, and you are so grateful to God for that process, that it becomes part of you, it becomes who you are. And it's not the same for everybody, but for us, it's so much of a part of who we are. We would obviously, and you should too, you would obviously think, yeah, this is absolutely the way to do it. You know what I mean? Because of the success that we've had, and it's part of us. It's who we are.
Right. And I think that you have to be very purposeful, and we are on a continuous basis on how much social media, how much, TV, I'll just say, even though we don't have traditional TV, but internet, how much consumption we're allowing into our home, what we're allowing into our home. That's just the Christian life anyway, but do we allow video games? Do we not allow video games? Do we allow them to play sports in town? Do we not allow them? Who do we allow them to, rub elbows with in the community? Who do we not allow them to rub elbows with? How much time are they spending talking to this person? Is that person going to pull their heart away from us? Everything that we do in their life is very purposeful. That doesn't mean that we do it perfectly. We've messed up a lot, and we backtrack a lot, and we say, we were thinking this, but we're going to go ahead and pull back from that now. And,
and we're honest with our kids. Hey, we messed up. We made a mistake.
Right.
This was a wrong decision.
Sure.
This is why we're making the change. This is what happened. This is why we're making the change. We're so sorry. We're here to guide, direct you, and protect you. And we apologize. This was either a miscalculation, a misdirection, or whatever. And that's called growth. That's called maturity. And, even if you're a parent, you're not fully, you're always learning,
right.
And you're always adjusting, and you're always apologizing, and it's like we teach our kids about apologies. An apology is not, I'm sorry. Because if you just keep doing the same thing and saying, I'm sorry, that is not true repentance. Repentance is recognizing where you're wrong, how you're wrong, and turning from it. And therefore, then the behavior changes, right? It's not the same behavior. That's true repentance. That's true remorse. That's a true desire to not do it again, right? That's called fruit,
Yes.
right? And that's what determines the authenticity of the act of saying you're
And
sorry.
I think that's kind of like the big thing is being on purpose with everything you allow, every interaction, all of that kind of stuff, and always filtering it and saying, well, I don't know what, not just allowing things to happen to you, but making those decisions and figuring out all the things that you can say yes to too. I think that's a big thing. It's not just saying no to everything, but looking for every opportunity that you can to say yes to your children, because the no's are going to come. You're going to have to say no. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's to relationships that they've built with other people. And you're like, okay, that was okay, but now it's not okay. Now this person's taking a different path.
Right.
They're going a different direction.
Yeah.
And we're going to need to make some separation there, and that's not ever fun. But, the other thing I think that I was just thinking of is that, you're growing in your role as a father. I'm growing in my role as a mother. And our children are just growing into the people that they are becoming. And, I feel like I'm still honing my skills. Like I'm not, I wasn't
arrived.
Yeah, I haven't arrived. I wasn't born a perfect mother. Like I didn't have all the skills. I wasn't born a perfect wife. I'm still learning all of these things as I'm growing, and you're learning and growing into your role of a father and a husband. I mean, it doesn't just happen. It's not like we got married and we just instantly knew everything that we needed to know.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's an absolutely perfect place to end the podcast. So we thank y'all for watching. And like, share, subscribe. Don't forget about our Rumble channel, just in case for some arbitrary reason we disappear.
In case we just said the wrong thing.
Join our Rumble and check out TheTexasBoys.com.
Yes.
And we'll see you on the next video.